What's the sequence? Sequence? Bhagavad Gita first?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. How many of you know the Bhagavad Gita verses that we're going to be covering and you read them? 3 or 4 or 5? Okay. So the procedure that you follow, if you have your little handheld device that tells you everything, Bhagavad Gita chapter 6, texts 24 through 28. Now, the screen is showing the translation, but it doesn't show the purport, and it doesn't show the Sanskrit. 624 through 628. Look at that. It does just as opens up the page. Look at that. Remote control. You guys are powerful. Okay. So those of you that don't have a handheld device, but you can see the screen over here, let us, I don't know what you normally do, but let us chant the verse, Sanskrit, together, or responsively. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Sanishayena yoktavyo.
Sanishayena yoktavyo.
Yogo nirvinachetasa.
Yogo nirvinachetasa.
Sankalpa prapavan kamam.
Sankalpa prapavan kamam.
Japa sarvan asheshataha.
Japa sarvan asheshataha.
Manasai vendriya gramam.
Manasai gramam.
Viniyam yasamantataha.
Viniyam yasamantataha.
Translation: one should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon, without exception, all material desires born of mental speculation and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Purport. The yoga practitioner should be determined and should patiently prosecute the practice without deviation. One should be sure of success at the end and pursue this course with great perseverance, not becoming discouraged if there is any delay in the attainment of success. Success is sure for the rigid practitioner. Regarding Bhakti Yoga, Rupa Goswami says, Utsaha nishchaya dhairyat tat karma pravartanat sangatyagat sato vrite shadhir bhaktir prasiddhyati. One can execute the process of Bhakti Yoga successfully with full-hearted enthusiasm, perseverance, and determination, by following the duties in the association of devotees, and by engaging completely in activities of goodness. Upadesh Amrita, number 3. As for determination, one should follow the example of the sparrow who lost her eggs in the waves of the ocean. A sparrow laid her eggs on the shore of the ocean, but the big ocean carried away the eggs on its waves. The sparrow became very upset and asked the ocean to return her eggs. The ocean did not even consider her appeal. So the sparrow decided to dry up the ocean. She began to pick out the water in her small beak, and everyone laughed at her for her impossible determination. The news of her activity spread, and at last Garuda, the gigantic bird carrier of Lord Vishnu, heard it. He became compassionate toward his smaller sister bird, and so he came to see the sparrow. Garuda was very pleased by the determination of the small sparrow, and he promised to help her. Thus Garuda at once asked the ocean to return her eggs, lest he himself take up the work of the sparrow. Ooh. The ocean was frightened at this and returned the eggs. Thus the sparrow became happy by the grace of Garuda. Paragraph. Similarly, the practice of yoga, especially bhakti yoga and Krishna consciousness, may appear to be a very difficult job. But if anyone follows the principles with great determination, the Lord will surely help, for God helps those who help themselves. So that's 24. And we're going to go through 28, 25, 26, 27, 28. Next, Shanai Shanai Uparamed Buddhyadritti Grahitaya Atmasangstam Maham Kritva Na kinchit api chintayet. Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction. And thus, the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. Purports, by proper conviction and intelligence, one should gradually cease sense activities. This is called pratyahara. The mind, being controlled by conviction, meditation, and cessation from the senses, should be situated in trance or samadhi. At that time, there is no longer any danger of becoming engaged in the material conception of life. In other words, although one is involved with matter, as long as the material body exists, one should not think about sense gratification. One should think of no pleasure aside from the pleasure of the Supreme Self. This state is easily attained by directly practicing Krishna consciousness. Text 26. Yato yato nishalati manas chanchalam astiram tatastato nayam yaita Atmanyeva vasham nayet. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. Purport. The nature of the mind is flickering and unsteady. But a self-realized yogi has to control the mind. The mind should not control him. One who controls the mind, parentheses, and therefore the senses as well, is called a Goswami or Swami, and one who is controlled by the mind is called Godasa, or the servant of the senses. A Goswami knows the standard of sense happiness. In transcendental sense happiness, the senses are engaged in the service of Rishikesha, the supreme owner of the senses, Krishna. Serving Krishna with purified senses is called Krishna consciousness. That is the way of bringing the senses under full control. What is more, that is the highest perfection of yoga practice. Two more verses. 27. Prashanta manasam hyenam yoginam sukham uttamam upaiti shanta rajasam brahmabhutam akalmasam. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the mode, passion. He realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme, and thus he is freed from all reactions to past deeds. Purport. Brahmabhuta is the state of being freed from material contamination and situated in the transcendental service of the Lord. Mad bhaktim labate param. Bhagavad Gita 18:54. One cannot remain in the quality of Brahman, the Absolute, until one's mind is fixed on the lotus feet of the Lord. Savaimana Krishna Padaravindayo, to be always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, or to remain in Krishna consciousness, is to be factually liberated from the mode of passion and all material contamination. Text 28. Yunjanevam sadatmanam yogi vigata kalmasa sukena brahmasam sparsham adyantam sukham ashnute. Thus the self-controlled yogi constantly engaged in yoga practice becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service of the Lord. And purport, self-realization means knowing one's constitutional position in relationship to the Supreme. The individual soul is part and parcel of the Supreme, and his position is to render transcendental service to the Lord. This transcendental contact with the Supreme is called Brahma Samsparsha. Very elevated position being described here. And many things to say. This is a section of Bhagavad Gita that's describing, not the title of the chapter is Dhyan Yoga. Dhyan Yoga is one of the stages of the eightfold yoga system. Dhyan, Dharana, and Samadhi are the final stages. And the previous set of verses is describing Samadhi. And this is describing how to get there. One might think it would be the other way around. You describe how to get there, and then you describe what it's like once you get there. It's kind of like a GPS. You have to know what your destination is before you set out to get there. And then it tells you how to get there. That previous set of verses, because this is 24 through 28. So the verse that ends in 23 is part of a collection of verses. Prabhupada has chosen to put them together. 20, 21, 22, 23. And that's describing the destination, the Samadhi destination. Now these verses are also describing, to a degree, what it's like once you're there, but more emphasis is on how to get there. In that long purport, there's just a little sharing. I've been speaking on those verses a lot lately because in colleges here in America, I was speaking, a topic that I was speaking on, in fact I'll be speaking on it tomorrow at Penn State University, is the art of mindfulness. Now mindfulness is a buzzword these days. Without doing the whole presentation, in the corporate world, there's the mindful manager. In health considerations, there's the mindful eating, mindful walking. In trauma therapy, mindfulness is used to help people who have experienced trauma and to get on the other side of being controlled by trauma. It has a lot of applications. But the root of the term is Buddhism. And the Buddhist idea is, it's in the purport of that long 20 through 23. The goal of Buddhism is that the term in Sanskrit is nirvana. Although he rejected the Vedas, he still stole some words from the Vedas. So nirvana literally means cessation of material existence. And in the purport that Prabhupada is writing, he's explaining that bhakti process takes one beyond nirvana. In fact, Prabhupada explains, chanting Hare Krishna, the first two messages of Shikshastika, verse number 1, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, that's 1. Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam, that's 2. That's nirvana. Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. The bhava, the miserable feature of material existence, that's compared metaphorically to a raging forest fire. Nirvapanam, it's eliminated. That's nirvana, cessation of material existence, cessation of material activity. Nirvana. Now, if you're a Buddhist, what does nirvana mean? It means nothing. When you cease material existence and there's no description of who you are and what you do, it's nothingness. The carrot is no suffering. Because, according to Buddhism, the root cause of suffering is desire. You want to stop suffering? Stop desire. When you're able to stop desire, that's nirvana. You've stopped material existence. And what do? Nothing. What's it like? Nothingness. That's what it's like. You want something? Then suffer. You want no suffering? Nirvana. So the art of mindfulness is not just become a Buddhist and enter into a stage of nothingness, or nirvana, or void. After all, he composed his own pranam mantra, right? Nirvishesha shunyavadi asyatya desataline. It's right in his pranam mantra. He delivered us from Buddhism, or the mindset behind Buddhism that says it's all about me and I want to enjoy fruitive activity, and when that doesn't bring happiness, and I find that out too painfully, I want one of these other two things. Pseudo-spirituality. I want to become one with Brahman, or I just want to terminate my existence. Shunya, Shunyavad is nirvana. So, right in that purport is Prabhupada's explanation. Just chant Hare Krishna, and you get to nirvana, and then you go beyond nirvana. What's on the other side of nirvana? Well, if you reject the Vedas, you'll never know. And Buddha rejected the Vedas, so they'll never know. But if you didn't reject the Vedas and you read Bhagavad Gita carefully, you'll find out what's on the other side of nirvana. It's right in that little purport. Svarupena vyavastati. Swa rupa, one's own spiritual form. Swa rupa vyavastati. Stiti means being situated in. You situated in your spiritual form, you do your devotional service to Krishna in your spiritual form. That's what on the other side of nirvana. Get on board, get on the boat, and let's go and back to Godhead in our spiritual form and serve the form of Krishna, the all-attractive Satchit Ananda Vigraha Krishna. And then there's degrees of that. Degrees, and the full degree is samadhi, where one doesn't think anything else. That was stated before those verses, the verse before those verses. When one attains this stage, and then it describes the stage, what one feels, there's nothing greater than this, and one never departs from it. There's a happiness within. And the happiness is not just the cessation of material existence. That's negation. The suffering, negation, is taken as happiness. Prabhupada likens it to banging your head against a wall, and it hurts, and then you stop. That's not happiness. It's not positive happiness. but it's cessation of the suffering that's self-inflicted. The suffering of material existence is really unnecessary. It's really unnecessary. But we're implicated by conditioning, by desire. We're awarded a body. And when the body is there, there's impulses of the body, born of material nature, just like this little child wants to play. And go, 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 go. Because that's what children do. She's not a bad child. She's just, according to her body, she's behaving like little bodies behave. Etc. This is Sankhya philosophy, in one sense. In chapter 13 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes we're sadasad yoni janmasu. We're given we're the creator of our own destiny. When we act in such a way, we get the body of a dog. Although the spirit soul is not a dog, if you get the body of a dog, you behave like a dog. You bark. And you're territorial, and you chew on bones, and you wag your tail, and you do things that dogs do, because you got a dog's body. Not who you are. You get a king's body, and you do what kings do, and so forth. And we're attached to it. And it's not just this one. It's a principle. You get a body and you're attached to it. Why is it that living at the fear, bhaya, eating, sleeping, mating, and fearing or defending? Why is it that it's really simple? Why is it living entities defend themselves? Because they're attached to their body. They'll protect their body. It's the strongest of all the other propensities of the body: mating, eating, and sleeping. You'll give those three up if there's some challenge, some threat of your safety. You'll do that one first. It's very strong. So because we're attached. And the body is the source of our misery. Attachment to the body is the source of our misery. So, desire is not the problem, it's ignorance. So, just like we have our little prasadam prayer, Sharira avidya jal. The body is a lump of ignorance, that's Prabhupada's translation. And the senses are a network of paths leading to death. That's the starting point of our little prayer that we say every time before we take prasadam. So what do? I get out a paring knife and peel off my body and I'll become a liberated soul. It doesn't work like that. We're attached to it. So, this is describing, the text 24 is describing the determination it takes to get to where your GPS tells you how to get there. It takes determination. And determination, I'm sure you remember the Vyavasayatmika Buddhi verse. Vyavasayatmika Buddhir Ekeha Kurunandana Bahushakanyanantascha Bodhayo Vyavasayinam. 241 Bhagavad Gita describing Bodhi Yoga. It's right in the verse and purport. Bodhi means intelligence. Bodhi means spiritual intelligence. It can sometimes mean material intelligence, but more appropriately or properly or specifically is spiritual intelligence. And spiritual intelligence drives the mind. When things are in disorder, the mind is the emperor. The mind rules the intelligence. It's upside down. And what's ruling the mind is the senses. The senses say, round, 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 round. I don't like something, or I like something. I want one of those. And it goes to or I don't want one of those, get rid of that. Goes to the mind. The mind summons the intelligence. My dear intelligence, yes sir. Reporting for duty, sir. Can you get me one of those and you can get rid of some of those other ones? Sure. I may have to go to a university for a few years and learn how to do it, but I'll surely do it for you and your service. So the intelligence serves the mind, which is serving the senses, and it's upside down. But in spiritual life, it's the intelligence rules the mind and the mind rules the senses. Then it's right side up. So where do you get buddhi? You don't get it at the university, you don't get it at Kmart. Where do you get it? You get it from Supersoul. Dadami buddhi yogam tam. And who does Krishna give buddhi to? He gives buddhi to those tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. That's who Krishna gives buddhi to. And what does that buddhi do? It takes you to Krishna. Yena mamupiyanti te. How to get to Krishna. That's what the intelligence does. So since the intelligence is telling you how to get to Krishna, there's this thing, the mind, that has to be a little cooperative. But the mind doesn't like to be cooperative. The mind likes to be in charge. Have you noticed? Don't control me. I'm in charge. So that's a material contamination because it's a diseased state. So there's the verse, the self-controlled yogi constantly engaged in yoga practice becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness. That was described in those previous set of verses, that happiness that's within such that you never want to depart from it. Not like someone's twisting your arm or you're twisting your own arm and it's ouch. It says you don't want to depart from it because that there's a happiness there. You don't want to leave it. When you're doing something that's practical, when you're doing something that you really like, time passes and you don't even notice that time is passing. When you're doing something you don't like, it's really difficult. Supposing you're, standing waiting for a bus, or you have a flight to catch and there's a traffic jam. Every second is terrible. And the traffic is going nowhere. And so when one has that when intelligence is directing the mind instead of the opposite, then purification happens quickly. And there's an attraction that you don't even have to push the mind, it's just attraction. Now the bhakti process, this chapter 6 is describing, on one hand is describing the Ashtanga Yoga system. On the other hand, it's giving elements that are within the bhakti process. Do I need to explain that? It's clear? Eightfold Yoga system has elements in it that are built within the bhakti system. The form is different. The essence is not. The essence is the same. The form is go to a secluded place and sit down on a deer skin and body in a certain posture, and the eyes half open and staring at the tip of the nose, and etc. Pranayama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara. So the pratyahara is mentioned in the next verse. That's the stage that comes after the first four. It's stage number 5. Yama niyamana, yoga teachers generally they just skip that. You know, the principles to live by and the prohibitions to avoid. They don't bother with that. Generally. Some do. And then comes asana and pranayama, common in yoga classes, yoga studios. I've learned it because I visit them a lot, especially in China. But you know, what comes after that, they don't know. When they hear, they're surprised. But it's right in Bhagavad Gita, and I point to them, you know, please read Bhagavad Gita. So here comes this pratyahara term. Pratyahara is right in text 25. By proper cultivation and intelligence, one should gradually cease sense activities. This is called pratyahara. Cease sense activities means there's the seat of consciousness within. That's the soul. And in everyday life, consciousness of the soul goes out. The conscious soul extends consciousness into the world. We do so through the senses. Like, I can see the light in the ceiling, and I can feel through sensation, the movement of the fan. So there's sense of touch, sense of sight, sense of smelling, etc. The consciousness is going out into the world. Pratyahara is where consciousness is being withdrawn. Just like what Grandfather Bhishma did. Classic example right in the Bhagavatam. After instructing Maharaj Yudhisthira, and the sun began moving in the northerly direction, Makara Sankranti, he stopped his Bhagavatam class and did the Pratyahara program. He stopped extending consciousness in the form of serving, because that's what devotees do. They engage their senses in the service of the master of the senses. But he withdrew consciousness and consolidated his attention within. It's not that his eyeballs went backwards in the sockets and his arms extended back inside his body and he became like a turtle. Although the description is there in Bhagavad Gita. The yogi is able to, when needed, extend the senses or withdraw the senses. So this pratyahara is to withdraw the senses. Not literally the senses go into the shell of the body, but consciousness is not extended through the senses for the purpose of practical. This is the Ashtanga yoga system. The Bhakti yoga system engages in pratyahara in a different principle. Its senses are extended only for the service of Krishna, and the mind is upon Krishna. Isn't that what Krishna says? Engage in your prescribed duty. That's extending your senses in the service of the master of the senses. And engage in your prescribed duty and always think of me. Not always think of me and stop activity. The Ashtanga Yoga system is mechanical. You stop activity. You stop activity. You become like a stone. A conscious stone, but you don't do things. You sit. And, be peaceful. The mind being controlled by conviction, meditation, and cessation from the senses, that is pratyahara, the mind should be situated in trance or samadhi. So it's progressive. It's progressive. The previous verse is saying, be determined. Don't give up. Keep going. Results may not come so quickly. Follow properly. It will come. Guaranteed. Your GPS will take you to the goal. Be clear what the goal is. And practice properly. You'll reach the goal. In other words, although one is involved with matter as long as the material body exists, one should not think about sense gratification. That's this neutrality. The senses are there, desire is there, you don't act on the platform of the material desire. Rather, there is desire, and desire is directed toward Krishna. Then comes this, very important verse for anybody that chants japa every day. Yato nishchalati manas chanchalam astiram. The mind is flickering and unsteady, restless, turbulent, very difficult to control. Yes, it's very difficult to control, but the instruction is, under the strength of intelligence, bring the mind back under the control of the self. That's the instruction of this verse of Bhagavad Gita. It's how to use your GPS to get to the goal. They're always thinking of Krishna goal. And it takes practice, constant practice. Again and again and again and again and again. As many times as it takes, a million, billion times, many times as it takes. And then the monkey can be trained. The mind is like a monkey, and monkeys can be trained. You have to be a little patient, but monkeys and the mind can be trained. Then comes this phrase, Brahmabhuta. Prabhupada doesn't state the whole verse, he just states the last line of the verse from the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Mad bhaktim labate param. Brahmabhuta verse. Who would like to recite the Brahmabhuta verse? Brahmabhuta prasanatma nasochati nakangsati samak sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. Labate means to obtain or attain. Mad bhaktim labate param. One attains the transcendental state of devotion. So going backwards, the platform of bhakti is from the spiritual platform. And in that spiritual platform, na sochati, na kangsati, there's neither hankering or lamenting. Neither hankering or lamenting, what's that? That's life. Passion and ignorance. Hankering and lamenting. Passion and ignorance. What's life without passion and ignorance? It's death. It's, nirvana. No desire and no lamentation. Cessation of material existence. Na sochati na kangsati. Samak sarveshu bhuteshu. Seeing all living entities sama. Not it's all one, but seeing with equal disposition. Seeing on the spiritual platform. And so this Brahmabhuta, that's the first part. Brahmabhuta, prasanatma. Prasana Atma, a happy self. Prasanna, Atma. Where there's happiness within. Brahmabhuta. So here's Prabhupada giving this free from material contamination stage. And this is naturally part and parcel of one who's cultivating bhakti. That's us. We're sadhakas, we're trying to be sadhakas, trying to do sadhana bhakti nicely every day, and gradually progress along the path of sadhana bhakti. We're trying, should be, every day trying. And one who does like that, this material contamination diminishes. Cheto, darpana, marjanam. Material contamination diminishes just from practicing properly sadhana bhakti. And then one can be situated in this Brahmabhuta position, at least the seed of it, not yet mature. But seeds, if carefully nourished and nurtured, they sprout into a mature plant. The bhakti creeper matures by proper practice of sadhana bhakti. It's the Brahmabhuta, that's the verse. And then gradually, na sochati, na kamsati, the hankering and lamenting diminish. We start to see other living entities on the spiritual platform. We come to the topmost stage of bhakti. Mad bhaktim labhate param. Right in the purport here. Then he says it negatively. One cannot remain in the quality of Brahman, the Absolute, unless one's mind is fixed on the lotus feet of the Lord. And then he makes reference to the Bhagavatam verse about Maharaj Ambarish, one of Prabhupada's favorite, often quoted verses. Savaimana Krishna Padara Vindayo. Maharaj Ambarish was a devotee. He was a pure devotee. And every day, he didn't just do, a shotgun morning program. He was emperor of the world, and the whole morning, early morning until late morning, like many, many hours every day, he was engaged in devotional practice. Yet he was a Krishna Bhakta, he had a Krishna deity, and he had a Krishna temple in the palace, and he went to the Krishna temple. And although he was king, he used his hands to clean the temple. He got on his hands and knees and paid obeisances before the deity and worshipped the deity. He was the king, not a brahmana. He didn't have somebody do the puja for him. He did it himself. But before he did all those things, one thing, fixed his mind on Krishna. So the other things help to purify the senses. What that means is, we don't just do meditation. We not only think of Krishna, we engage in our prescribed duties and think of Krishna, because that purifies the senses. Clear? The object, the Supreme Pure, when you bring that which is impure in contact with the Supreme Pure, the thing that's impure becomes purified in contact with the Supreme Pure. The senses are also sitting places of lust, along with the mind. So the mind needs to go to Krishna, and the senses need to go to Krishna. Practical activity, our prescribed duties, but not just work as worship. The mind must be for Krishna. And it's not with the idea of liberation. I want to get free from this contamination because it's the cause of my suffering and misery, which is true. It is the cause of our suffering and misery. It's true. But the motivation of bhakti is to please Krishna. And if we don't put the for the pleasure of Krishna element and cultivate it, It's mechanical bhakti, and we don't progress. We're doing the activity of bhakti without the consciousness of bhakti. We won't progress. Some, no loss, but progress will be really slow. Really, really, really slow. And then we wonder, why is it taking so long? To be always engaged in the transcendental living service of the Lord and remain in Krishna consciousness is to be factually liberated from the mode of passion and all material contamination. Passion means I'm the enjoyer. I'm at the center, and my enjoyment is front and center in my life. It's about me. Bhakti is to make the transition from it's about me to it's about Krishna, and my happiness is Krishna's happiness. But we're not there yet. We're still sadhakas. And then the last verse, Brahma Sparsham is reference is made in the purport. Brahma Sparsha. Yehi sam sparsha ja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate. Nice verse from Bhagavad Gita. Samsparsha. Samsparsha means by contact of the object with sense objects. For the mood of bhoga. Yehi samsparsha ja bhoga dukkha. We want sukha. But you approach sense objects in the mood of being the enjoyer of the object of the sense, you get dukkha instead of sukha. It's 100% predictable. It's called Maya. That which is not. And then, but this is the same word, samsparsha, but it's Brahma samsparsha. Krishna is to be pleased. Now, for us, because we're followers of Rupa Goswami, and his commentator Jiva Goswami, his nephew, whenever this word, Jiva Goswami explains this. Wherever the word Brahma is there, it implies Bhagavan. Wherever the sunshine is there, it implies the sun God, the sun globe and the sun God. Although the word may be just used speaking sunshine or Brahman. The Brahma samsparsha is Krishna is to be satisfied. When that's the consciousness that is evolved by the bhakti process. Now here, this is the Ashtanga process, where the objective is withdrawing the senses from sense objects in the mood of enjoyment and consolidating it in, one may do meditation to become fixed in Brahman. Or that kind of Brahmabhuta idea. The impersonal Brahmabhuta idea. And then it's troublesome. Exactly what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12. It's very troublesome, very difficult for the embodied soul. And we're all embodied. And it's very difficult. And in the end, after many bahunam jamanamante gyanavam prapadyate, it comes to the point of surrender. Just in the beginning, I don't want to surrender. I have this, I don't want to be surrendered to anybody attitude. Two years ago, when I was in China, I was introduced to a Buddhist millionaire. And they wanted to meet me. Like, my first question is, why do you want to meet me? I mean, what is it that you expect I'm going to do for you? And it was an interesting discussion. But, my happiness is compassion. I like giving to others. It makes me happy. It's about me. And the capacity to give to others has come from being successful in business. So there's this, she was describing this guidance, this higher guidance that somehow I can tap into, and then I can make the right decisions and make more money, and then I can find happiness by being charitable. So you're my friend's guru, and I thought maybe you can help me, be more successful in business so I can be charitable and be happy. Okay. Now I understand where you're coming from. So now, in the course of the discussion, it wasn't really, I was trying to be polite, but even in trying to be polite, at one point she snapped and said, "Don't give me this stuff," it's like really crude language, "don't give me this stuff about, some higher power, I have to subordinate myself to a higher power. Don't go there." Okay. I don't know if I can help you then. I didn't say that. I tried everything, and it was all the doors were locked. I ended up just, here's some prasadam and try chanting this mantra. Maybe you'll find it'll help you. With some faith in the holy name, maybe something. But when the Brahma Sukha idea is a contaminated conception of what the goal is, then you can't get to the goal. Stubborn obstinacy against what is going to take you to the goal, because the goal is ill-defined. So fortunately for us, we have not only Bhagavad Gita, but we have Bhagavad Gita as it is, with a revelation in the purports of explaining what that highest happiness in transcendental loving service of the Lord is. Just reading the verse. Brahma samsparsha adyantam sukham, adyantitam sukham. The highest happiness. Ashnute, one attains it. So this is the Ashtanga Yoga system, the one last time, and we're done. The Ashtanga Yoga system has elements that are built into the bhakti process. The form is not the same. The essence is the same. The Ashtanga Yoga system is mechanical. It's not devotional. It's not depending upon the mercy of Krishna. It's in trying to please Krishna. It's wanting something. I'm still at the center. Now I eventually turn my attention to the Supreme, and gradually one becomes freed from that contamination. But one can go directly. Nine o'clock. We didn't begin Chaitanya Charitamrita reading. Any discussion? Yes?
I have one question. Can you elaborate a little bit more on cessation of material energy?
Cessation of?
Material energy.
Material?
Energy.
No, material existence. Material existence or material activity. Either way, cessation of material activity. If you're a Buddhist, you just go and sit and do meditation, period. cessation of material activity. Now, if you're a Buddhist monk living at a Buddhist monastery, then you may, it depends on which monastery, but some of the monasteries, this is what I learned from my visit to China. They do madhukari. Go door to door and whatever people give, that's the alms that goes back to the teacher. They follow that principle. It's a Vedic principle. But then some of those people, many of those people, if it's unmentionables, well, you accept it because you didn't do the killing, so you're not culpable for the killing. You just accepted some alms and just go ahead and eat it. And then it becomes, anything that flies or walks or crawls. And that is what if people give you any of those things, so that's it's a version of, a distorted version of cessation of material activity. Or maintenance of the body. But the main activity is meditation. And, then depending upon the brand, some mantras, Buddhist mantras, they got a lot of them. And they can do it for hours. Like, brahmanas that are Vedic brahmanas, they have their Buddhist mantras and they say them. It's the message is, as far as I understand in principle, it's taking shelter in the spirit of goodness, values and principles to live by, kind of thing, and messages that help inspire that and nurture that and cultivate that, so that their life becomes a life of goodness. It assists in meditation and assists reaching the goal of cessation of material activity, because material desire has subsided because your thought process is much higher, but you still have to subsist. Someone forwarded to me this video of a young boy who is a Buddhist, who learned some practices from his teacher, and he went back to his village and he sat under a tree, a big banyan tree, and he was there for weeks. They brought cameras and were videoing the young boy. He didn't eat, didn't drink water, didn't move, didn't open his eyes. He was in this state of trance, and then there were physicians saying, you can't live without water. The body will dehydrate, and not only you get sick, you'll die. And so there's something going on physiologically where we're in this state of trance, the body somehow sustained itself because of something. It's a medical mystery. And then the Buddhist teacher explained that I taught this young boy certain techniques of how you can stay in this state, etc., etc. So, that's cessation of material activity. I forget the duration of time, weeks, months, something, a really long time. Just literally in trance. And we know that from the Vedic time, persons knew how to do meditation underwater, or for wherever they went to do it. A long time. Cessation of material activity. in the negative sense. And so the spiritual sense, the Krishna conscious spiritual sense, is engaging in activity not for sense gratification but for service of Krishna, and then that's cessation of material activity. And then real life begins when it's spiritual activity. Yes?
Maharaj, in purports we see this thing many times, like by engaging in the devotional service one can attain the happiness himself alone. So,
By engaging in devotional service one can attain happiness within.
himself. Yeah. So here my question is, Maharaj, here we here like in this room, like we have
We have a what?
here in this room many people are there, like some are
In a room?
in our here.
Here in this room, there's many
Yes.
people. Okay.
So some are young kids.
Different
some are
stages of their
different
devotional
stages,
practice, sure.
So some are householders.
Yeah,
some
sure.
are
Yeah.
dead people.
It's fine.
So Maharaj, my question is on practical application, what is devotional service is there for everyone?
Anyavilashata shunyam jnana karma adinabratam madhukuyena krishna rushilanam bhakti ruttama. That's what it is for everybody. And there are different stages. It's fine. Natural. But that's what it is in principle. There's the principle. You're familiar with the verse. So that's what it is. Okay, Chaitanya Charitamrita. I'm sorry I've taken so long in the Bhagavad Gita. Should we put something on the screen?
Maharaj, you gonna reach?
Do we have the book? I mean, you're going to put it on the screen,
Yeah.
but
It's not there. It's not published.
there it is. During the last week of May, Srila Prabhupada began to feel exhausted. He spoke of heart palpitations, hoping that the symptoms would clear up in a day or two. Kirtananda requested Prabhupada to rest and see no visitors, but Prabhupada's condition became worse. Kirtananda. Swamiji began to complain that his left arm wasn't functioning properly, and then he began to develop a twitching in his left side, and his left arm would twitch uncontrollably. It seemed to pain him in some mysterious ways, internally or psychologically. Achyutananda. It was Sunday, 2 days before Memorial Day, and we had arranged a large program in the afternoon in a hall uptown. I went up to get Swamiji. Still, all the devotees were ready. Since all the devotees were ready, Swamiji was lying down, and his face was pale. He said, "Feel my heart." And I felt a quivering vibration in his chest. I went down, but didn't want to alert everyone and panic them. I went to Kirtananda and quietly said, "The Swami is having some kind of mild heart palpitations." And immediately we both flew back up. Swamiji said, "Just massage here." So I rubbed him on the chest, and he showed me how. He said, "The others go, and Achyutananda can stay here. If anything happens, he can call you." So the others went and did the program, and I waited. Once or twice, he called me in and had me quickly rub over his chest. Then he looked up, and his color had come back. I was staring with my mouth open, wondering what to do. He looked at me and said, "Why are you sitting idle? Chant Hare Krishna." During the evening, palpitations again occurred, so I slept in the room next to his. And late at night, he called me in and again had me massage. Kirtananda. It was on Tuesday afternoon, Memorial Day, and I was sitting with Swamiji in his room. While kirtan was going on downstairs, the twitching began again. The Swamiji's face began to tighten up, his eyes started rolling. Then all of a sudden, he threw himself back and I caught him. He was gasping, "Hare Krishna." And then everything stopped. I thought it was the last, until his breathing started again, and with it, the chanting. But he didn't regain control over his body. Brahmananda. I was there along with Kirtananda. It was on Memorial Weekend. We couldn't understand what was wrong with Swamiji. He couldn't sit up. He was moaning. And nobody knew what was happening. We nursed him, myself and Kirtananda, trying all different things. I had to go out and buy a bedpan for him. Prabhupada's left side was paralyzed. He asked that a picture of a spiritual master be put on the wall in front of him, thinking that Prabhupada was preparing to leave his body and wanted to meditate at the last moment on his spiritual master, Chutananda, taped it to the door facing Prabhupada. Devotees entered the front room of the apartment and Prabhupada told them to chant Hare Krishna. Then he told them to pray to Krishna in his form of Nrsingadeva, Satsvarupa. Swamiji said we should pray to Lord Nrsingadeva, and the prayer should be, "My master has not finished his work." At different times, he would allow us to take turns and massage different parts of his body. Then he had us go downstairs and hold kirtan through the night. Jadharani. He taught us the prayers to Lord Nrsingadeva. He said the words one by one, and I wrote them down. I called up the temples in San Francisco and Montreal and told them the prayer. Swamiji said, "You should pray to Krishna that my spiritual master has not yet completed his work, so please let him finish." Damodar. I went into the temple. No one was downstairs, so I just sat down to chant some rounds. Then a devotee came down, looking very disturbed, so I asked what was going on. When he told me, I rushed upstairs. Everyone was sitting around in the second room, where they could see into Swamiji's room through the window in the wall. They were all chanting on their beads. Jadharani was handing out little slips of paper with writing on them. Swamiji, she explained, wanted us to chant these prayers. Brahmananda. We brought the painting of Lord Nrsingadeva into Swamiji's room, and we were all chanting. When Swamiji had to use the bedpan in front of Lord Nrsingadeva's painting, he begged forgiveness of Lord Nrsinga. He could understand that Lord Nrsinga was sitting right in front of him. I saw it as a painting, but Swamiji saw it as Lord Nrsinga himself sitting there. It was getting worse. Total weakness and everything. I couldn't get a doctor because it was Memorial Day and everything was closed. I even called my family doctor, but he wasn't in. Everyone had gone on vacation because on Memorial Day everyone leaves the city. I couldn't get anyone. I was calling hospitals, doctors, trying this and that, but I couldn't get anyone. Finally, I got a doctor by calling an emergency number for the New York City Medical Department. The doctor came. He was an old geezer with a really loud voice. When he saw Swamiji, he said, "I think the man is praying too much. I think you should get some exercise. You should go out for a walk in the morning." Achyutananda. The doctor didn't know very much. He said that Swamiji had a cold. I said, "What do you mean? His heart is palpitating." I don't know what to do. "Does he take any whiskey?" I said, "He doesn't even drink coffee or tea." "Oh, very good, very good." "Well, I think he has just got a cold." Dwarkadish. He came and took a look at the place, and you could tell right away he didn't like what he saw. He thought we were just a bunch of hippies. He couldn't wait to get out of the place. But he said, "Oh, he's got influenza." That was a ridiculous diagnosis. And then he said, "Give me my money." We paid him, the doctor left, and Swamiji got worse. The devotees called the second doctor who came and diagnosed Srila Prabhupada as having a mild heart attack. He said that Prabhupada should at once go to the hospital. Max Lerner, a lawyer friend of the devotees, I got a call one day that the Swamiji had a mild heart attack and I could be of some help. At that time, they were going to take him to Bellevue Hospital, but I suggested that at least I could try to get him into a private hospital. After several hours of talking and negotiating with people at the hospital, we were able to get Swamiji into Beth Israel Hospital, Brahmananda. The day after Memorial Day, we had to arrange for an ambulance. Beth Israel had no ambulance, so I called a private ambulance company. It was all arranged with the hospital that Swamiji would arrive at 9 o'clock that morning. But the ambulance didn't come until about noon. During that time, Swamiji kept moaning. Then finally the ambulance came, and they were horrible guys. They treated Swamiji like a bundle of cloth. I thought it would have been better if he had taken Swamiji in a cab. Except for Kirtananda, who stayed in Prabhupada's hospital room as a nurse, no one else was allowed to stay. They all went back to the temple to chant through the night, as Prabhupada had requested. Kirtananda phoned Hayagriva in San Francisco and told him what happened. How Swamiji had suddenly fallen back and cried out, "Hare Krishna," and how there had been nothing for about 30 seconds, then a big gasp, "Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna." Kirtananda told Hayagriva that the devotees in San Francisco should chant all night and pray to Lord Nrsimha, gives the Nrsimha prayer. Lord Nrsimhadev, the half-man, half-lion incarnation of Lord Krishna, had appeared in another age to save his pure devotee Prahlad and to kill the demon Hiranyakashipu. Prabhupada had asked his disciples to pray to Lord Nrsimhadev by chanting the special mantra and thinking, "Our spiritual master, our master has not finished his work, please protect him." The boys went back to the temple and chanted together, but after a few hours they all fell asleep. They wanted to rest so that they could go to the hospital the next day. Haridas, when we heard about it in San Francisco, there was grief and people were crying. There was a tremendous love and thinking about Swamiji and just concentration, a mass concentration of pulling him through, giving him strength and summoning the help of Krishna, Lord Chaitanya, and everybody we could possibly call upon to lend their energies. People came into the temple doing rosaries and whatever faith or beliefs or trips they were on, they were directing that toward a healing. They were all chanting with us. This goes on for some time, huh? Huh?
It's okay to stop.
Yeah, I think so. Because it could go on for quite a while.
But, anybody else would like to read a paragraph?
I agree, God. It's a night I'll never forget. We turn on the altar lights behind the Jagannaths, light candles and chant in the flickering shadows. It's a solemn chanting and even more solemn dancing. News quickly spreads down Hate Street, and soon the temple is crowded with others come to chant with us through the night. Mukunda and Janki phone New York, but there is no additional information. Kirtanananda is spending the night in the hospital beside Swamiji's bed. No one else is being allowed in. Hospital regulations. Yes, everyone in New York is chanting.
Anybody else? So Maharaj, we do one room japa.
Okay. Sure.